Hello, children. Every one of you would have experienced this, right? Whenever you walked along a pond or whenever the water spilled on the floor, if it is shallow, you would have seen your image on the water, right? You would have seen your image in the clear water. You would have experienced this. And also every day you would like to see your face on the mirror, right? And especially during functions, you will groom yourselves and you will like to see your face on the mirror, how you look. So, have you ever imagined that how we can able to see our image on this clear water or through the mirror? Today we are going to see what helps us to, what makes us to see our image on these objects. And it is nothing but it is due to the process called reflection. So this is a phenomenon where the surface reflects the light and we can able to see the objects on the other surface. So it is the same in case of mirror, right? So in this picture also you can see in a clear water you can able to see the entire scenery being reflected on the water. Now let us see how this reflection takes place. Now you see a bulb here, right? So what does the bulb does? We see in the previous classes that bulb is a source of light. So from this source the light rays comes. So the light rays are nothing but the rays which comes from the light source. So what happens to this light rays? When the light rays comes from a source, it falls on a specific surface. So that surface is called as the reflection surface. The reflection surface comes from the reflection material. So when the light rays comes and falls on the reflection materials, it forms the reflecting surface. The surface in which the light rays falls is called the reflective surface. And here you can see we have pointed 2 points, right? From the source the light rays coming, right? So the starting point is called P and the point where the light rays meets the reflecting surface is mentioned as O. Now let this light rays which is coming from the source is called as incident ray. That is, it is the initial ray which comes from the light rays. And what happens next? We will see. So the point in which the incident ray meets the reflecting surface is called as point of incidence. You can see a point, right? The light rays hitting a reflecting surface and the point where it meets the reflecting surface is called as point of incidence. And what happens after the incident ray hits the reflecting surface? Automatically, when the incident ray hits the reflecting surface, as the name suggests, it is a reflecting surface, right? It reflects back the light ray, and this ray is called as the reflected ray. And here we have named the reflected ray as Q and O, the point from which the point of incidence and the reflected ray gets reflected is called as the reflected ray. So PO is the incident ray which comes from the light source, and the point at which the incident ray meets the reflecting surface is called point of incidence, and from the point of incidence the ray is reflected and this ray is called as the reflected ray. So now we have two rays, right? Now when you draw a straight line from the point of incidence, it is called as normal, and this normal is perpendicular to the reflecting surface. So this normal is perpendicular to the reflecting surface and it is drawn from the point of incidence. Now you can see both the angle of the incident ray, that is formed between the incident ray and normal, and the angle which is formed between the normal and the reflected ray are equal. So the angle which is formed between the incident ray and the normal point is called the angle of incidence, which is denoted by the small letter I, and the angle which is formed between the normal line and the reflected ray is called the angle of reflection. So this is the overall view about the reflection, how the reflection happens. So we saw the incident ray, it's the reflecting surface, and as soon as the incident ray it's the reflecting surface, the incident rays get reflected and it is called as reflected ray. And when we draw a perpendicular line to the reflecting surface, two angles are formed, that is angle of incidence between the incident ray and the normal, and the angle of reflection which is formed between the normal and the reflected ray. So we have shown the overall view of the reflection and the angle of incidence and angle of reflection. Now we will see the laws of reflection. So now we are going to see about laws of reflection. So first we will see the first law of reflection. The first law of reflection states that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. So as we seen there, so in this picture you can able to see what we seen in the last place, right? So in this picture, you can able to see the plane mirror. When the incident ray hits the plane mirror, it gets reflected back. So the angle between the normal and incident ray is called angle of incidence, and the angle between the normal and the reflected ray is called the angle of reflection. When you see here, both this angle and this angle are equal. So this law states that the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection, and hence it is proved that the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Now let us see the second law of reflection. The second law of reflection states that the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal at the point of incidence lie on the same plane. So we saw three types of ray, right? The incident ray which comes from the light source, and the reflected ray which gets reflected from the reflecting surface, and the point of incidence, that is the incident ray where it meets the surface, reflecting surface. This is called as point of incidence, right? So these 3 points, right, they lie on the same plane. You can see this is the plane where all the 3 points are lying. Next, we are going to see about types of reflection. We saw laws of reflection. Now we are going to see about the types of reflection. In general, there are 2 types of reflection. One is the regular or specular reflection, and another is the diffuse reflection. So first we will see the specular reflection. The specular reflection is nothing but the parallel beam of light remain parallel after reflection from an even surface. In this case, you can see the surface, the reflecting surface is a plane surface, that is it does not have any waves. So since the surface is plane and it is clear, what happens, the ray of light, right? So the incident ray, however it meets the plane, the same way it is reflected back. So in the first picture you can see the incident ray, it's the surface. So the reflected rays also lies in the same directions. So this is called as the regular or specular reflection. So next we will see the diffuse reflection. So in the diffuse reflection, the surface is uneven. So in the regular reflection, we saw that the surface is even surface. So what happens, whatever light hits the surface is reflected back in the same direction. So they are parallel to each other. But in the uneven surface, when the light rays are when the incident ray hits the surface, that is uneven surface, what happens, the reflected lights are not in the same direction, they are of different directions. So in regular reflection, you can see it is an even surface and the reflected rays are parallel to each other. But whereas in the diffused reflection, you can see it is the incident ray, it's the uneven surface and the reflected rays are in the different directions, and this is called as the type of reflection. So next we will see the types of beam of light. So first we will see what is the beam of light. So the light rays, right, we have learned about light rays. These light rays are not single, instead there are bundles of rays. So when there is a single ray, we call it as light ray, but whereas they are in bundles, we call it as beam of light. So these beam of light are of 3 types. So we are going to see in detail about these 3 types. They are parallel beam of light, convergent beam of light and the divergent beam of light. We can also call it as parallel rays, convergent rays and divergent rays. So first we will see the parallel beam of light. For this we can have an example, the sun. So the sun, we would have seen this condition many times, right? Whenever the sun rises, when the clouds passes, we can able to see the rays coming from the sun. So these rays are parallel. So because, and even whenever you draw a sun diagram, right? So this is the sun. Whenever you draw a sun diagram, you will use to draw lines. So we also used to draw lines in the parallel because the sun beam which the sun with the sun light rays which gets emitted from the sun is parallel in nature. So that is why we can able to see these kind of lines. Now we will see about the divergent rays. Have you ever seen a candle when it is lighted up? The light, when the candle is lighted up, the light doesn't travel in a straight path or in a parallel path. You can see the light being reflected in all the direction, the light being spread to the all the direction, and this condition is called the divergence rays. From a particular point, the light spreads to the different directions. Next, we will see what is converging rays. So, converging rays are nothing but when the different rays are converged to a particular point, it is called as converging rays. So, in before type, we saw the divergent rays, which is the light if light is found in all directions, the light is get refracted in all the directions. But whereas in converging rays, we can able to focus it to a particular point through specific lenses. So in this condition, you can see the sunlight is focused to a particular point through the lenses. And in this picture also, you can able to see the light rays when focused using a converging lens, it all gets focused to a particular point. And this condition is called as the converging condition, and the rays is called as converging rays. We get light rays from different sources. Have you ever imagined whenever we switched on a light, we can able to see the light is spreading into the room very fast, right? So this is the speed of light. It is said that about the light travels about 3 lakh kilometers per second in air or vacuum. That is why whenever we switched on the light doesn't stay along with the bulb. Instead, it gets spread throughout the room because the light travels very fast. Next, we will see the interaction of light with matter. The light interacts with different materials, and based on these interactions, they are classified into different types. And we will see what are they. Now, you can see this video. In this video, I have placed a lantern and then I have taken a transparent material. When I place the transparent material in front of this lantern, you can able to see it clearly. Then I have taken a translucent material, that is tissue paper. When I placed this before this lantern, I could not able to see the lantern light very clearly. Next, I have taken a cardboard, that is the opaque material. When I placed this material in front of the lantern, I couldn't able to see anything behind this. So this is how the light interacts with different matters. So we are going to see about how these light reacts with different matter. So these light rays react with different matter, that is different object, different materials, depending on the permeability. So the different light rays react with the different materials depending on permeability. So permeability is nothing but the ability of the light to pass through, So how much ever this light allows the material to pass through, only that much it is visible to us. So we will see the different interaction of light with this matter. First we will see the three types of matters, that is three types of materials: transparent materials, translucent materials, and opaque materials. So every one of us know what is transparent materials, right? So whichever is clear and whichever is able to see whatever is seen on the other side, whatever is seen on both the sides, it is called the transparent materials, right? So in this transparent materials, what happens when we pass a light through the transparent material, all light gets passes through. So that is the complete permeability of light takes place. So in the transparent material, the light passes completely. In the next translucent material, this material is nothing but it allows only the partial light to pass through. So whenever the translucent material is placed and the light is passed, only some light, that is only partial amount of light, is passed through. Next, the opaque. In the opaque object, whenever its light is passed through, no light passes through. The light cannot passes through this opaque material. Based on the permeability, the different materials are classified, that is transparent materials, which allows the light to pass through completely. Next, the translucent material, which allows the light to pass only partially, and the opaque material, which does not allow the light to pass through. So now let us see the different examples for these three materials. So in this picture, you can able to see three different materials, that is transparent material, translucent material, and opaque material, and examples for all these things. So in the first column, you can see specs, the mirror, the jar, the sand clock, whatever is clear, whatever the light can pass through completely, those materials comes under the transparent. And the second is the translucent materials. So for example, paper, currency, and some tissue papers, all the materials which allows the light to pass only partially are called as translucent materials. And opaque materials are nothing but which does not allow the light to pass through. So any hard materials which does not allow the light to pass through are categorized under the opaque objects. Now, let us summarize what all we saw in today's class. In today's class, we saw what is reflection, and we saw the two types of laws of reflection, based on the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection, and also based on the incident ray, reflected ray, normal and the point of incidence. Next we saw two types of reflection, which is specular reflection and the diffuse reflection. Next we saw three types of beam of light, which are parallel beam of light, convergent beam of light and divergent beam of light. Next we saw the interaction of light with matter, and based on this interaction they are classified into transparent material, translucent material and opaque material with different examples. Hope you have understood. Thank you.